I find it very exciting to see and experience new game developers make new games for us to play. These developers come in a different variety, with some just starting out and learning that process of trying to make a name for themselves with their very first game. Or you have developers that left studios that they used to work at to then create something new for their own. Either way, this takes commitment, talent, and determination to succeed. I see Supergiant Games as one of those studios. They represent a good example of a group of people that came together to create something special and then continue to do so. Supergiant Games is made up of a group of talented people that both worked within the games industry on big games like the Command & Conquer series and some of the Modern Warfare titles. Some even came in with the background of working within the games press, assessing other people's products. But they all left what they had behind to create something new with Supergiant. The members of the studio saw what many indie games were achieving at the time and wanted to do that for themselves. They saw the success of their contemporaries as a means of motivation and inspiration to create something new. In 2009, Supergiant was founded and they began work on their first game. They worked to create a new action RPG while also telling a memorable story. In 2011, Bastion was released and it received a lot of high praise.
Gone. Just like that. From the wharf to the wilds. You gotta hand it to the Calamity. It did the job quick. But it missed a few spots, didn't it?
The game featured a narrator that would continuously comment on the actions of the player, making his comments feel reactive to the inputs of the player. The narrator ensured that the player was always surrounded by the narrative. On the gameplay side of things, Bastion provided many options to tackle the many combat encounters. Bastion succeeds at having an excellent pacing, as it's always giving the player something new to play with. And once the player gets comfortable with a weapon, the game likes to throw in another option for the player to consider. This forces experimentation. This gets the game into a rhythm where it flirts with letting the player get comfortable with a weapon and then providing a new one. Weapons can be mixed and matched, which gives the game a lot of personality to those encounters. For a first game for a new studio, Supergiant succeeded. Bastion was well received and personally one of my favorite games. But Supergiant didn't want to stop making games after they finished Bastion. They had too many ideas and a creative drive that was burning to be put to good use. Like many studios, you would think the logical and maybe safe move would be for the studio to create a sequel. No one would fault them for that in making a sequel to Bastion, and since there were many fans of the game, I feel like a lot of them would be eager to experience a sequel. But Supergiant Games didn't want to go the safe route. They wanted to create an entirely new idea again. This is a studio that has proven to take risks and innovate and not take the safe route. And this is where their second game, Transistor, comes into play. Transistor takes place in a city called Cloudbank. Our main hero is Red, a famous singer who is under attack by the group known as The Process. She finds a mysterious sword who acts as the narrator, and this is where the journey begins. There's a lot to talk about with Supergiant Games, which is why I wanted to lay down the groundwork and lead up to Transistor. Now join me as we take a look at the combat system of Transistor.
When you speak, I hear silence. Every word a defiance. I can hear, oh, I can hear. Think I'll go where it suits me. Moving out to a country with everyone, oh, everyone, before we all become one.
Once you start up Transistor, you will think you're in a standard top-down action RPG, but there's a lot more going on here.
Sparkle and shine like the
Is he trying to trick us?
Transistor provides you with a few abilities from the start. You learn that these are your main means to attack. As you progress throughout the story, you will continually earn new abilities to use within the many combat encounters. Like Bastion, Transistor likes to continually give the player new abilities to use. You'll find yourself summoning allies for yourself, using stealth as a means to hide and reposition yourself from enemies, or summon these slow-moving pieces of energy that hurt anything they hit. With earning new abilities on a consistent basis, this creates a similar flow to their last game. When you have new toys to try, that sparks a new interest in the player each time they have something new to play with. How could this new ability work differently, or better with what I have equipped? Maybe I can come up with a better strategy because of it. And then this is where the experimentation starts. Always having new attacks to try out helps to keep the pacing good and keeps the player engaged. It shows how the game knows how to prevent itself from getting boring. There are a lot of abilities, and within the game, these abilities are called functions. And while there are many functions to obtain and use throughout the story, they have more than one use to them. Functions can be used with different effects: an active effect, an upgrade effect, and a passive effect. The active effect is the use of the function as a usable move in combat. The upgrade effect is a modifier that you can place on one of the active functions. One function can have two upgrade effects, and the passive effect acts as a passive buff. A good example of this is how the function of the spark works. This function's active effect will allow you to attack enemies, but if you decide to slot this function as an upgrade into another function, then it will make that function split into smaller attacks. The passive effect of the spark will allow you to create a copy of yourself when attacked, to allow you to get away. All of the functions act this way, and since each function has essentially 3 different uses to them, there's many possibilities for the way you want to customize your character. While this isn't explicitly about the combat itself, there are systems that are working that help create an engaging combat system, and the choices don't just stop here. After setting the stage with letting you know what you have available in combat and how you can use those functions to help you, the combat itself has its own preferences for the player. Within your first few combat encounters, you'll think this game operates like any other action RPG. You have your moves and you're locked into an area and you must defeat everyone there to proceed. And while all of that is true, the variety in the functions you can use gives this game a unique spin on the genre. The turn phase adds another layer to this.
Surprise, surprise. Set.
When you start your turn phase, you will stop the passage of time and you can use this as an opportunity to plan out your attacks. You can see the action bar at the top of the screen, and this shows you how many actions you can do before the bar is used up. Walking and using functions all deplete this bar. During this phase, you'll be able to line up certain functions that require more precision, along with seeing who you can hit and how much damage you'll do to them. The phase lets you do a complete reset if the actions you have chosen do not work out to your liking. So this acts as a strategic phase where you can set up and try out a different amount of combinations with all the equipped functions that you have, and find the best way to effectively execute that turn. While the turn phase provides many benefits, there is a risk and reward system to it. The risk is that once you execute a turn, you cannot use any of your functions until your energy bar has filled. This doesn't take long to refill, but it feels like forever while you're waiting for it to come back. This means that while the turn phase can give you a great leg up on your enemies, it can also leave you open to attack and take a lot of damage. So this phase requires planning in how you use it with your functions, along with planning out your position so you don't leave yourself in the middle of a group of enemies. The turn phase mixed with the active actions creates this nice mix of a traditional action RPG and a turn-based strategy game.
When you speak can hear, oh, I can hear. Think I'll go where it suits me.
Transistor is a great game. When I think back on Transistor, the first thing that comes to mind is the great combat system. I find it to be the most unique aspect of the game. The options here are almost endless, and the combination of fighting in a normal action RPG combined with the strategy provided with the turn phase makes the combat feel fresh and personal to this game. There's loads more to discuss with this game, especially with its narrative and excellent visual style. But I wanted to focus on the combat itself because that's what stuck out to me and stayed with me. If you haven't tried Transistor, it's now available on the Switch, and that's another excellent place to find and discover Supergiant's games. I can't wait to see what they make next, and thank you for watching.